This is the night that Lincoln arrived here, April 14th. He and Mary, the presidential party, ascended these stairs. The play had already started, so it was about 8:30 that evening, and he and his party came to the back of the stage here, and the actors on the stage could see him, so they stopped the performance.
When he got to about here, they stopped.
They stopped the performance. The conductor started playing Hail to the Chief. The entire audience stood and applauded. The audience was standing, they were cheering, they were, receiving the hero president. He had ended the war, which they had been living through for the last 4 years.
When he got here, everyone could see them go into the
Everyone could see them. They went in this box.
And we get to go into the actual
Box.
Wow.
They came right through this door, walked in here. The president sat down in the rocker. He got over in front of the rocker. He leaned over the balustrade, acknowledged the crowd, gestured to them. He sat down. The crowd finally calmed down, and they resumed the play.
What about the flags and all this stuff?
The flags were all brought in that afternoon. John Ford went to the Treasury Department that day and got these flags and arranged them in the box so that they could create something special. Remember, it was a celebration. The war was over. This print here of George Washington, this was there. This is the actual print that was here that night, and it has a nick in the frame where John Wilkes Booth leapt off the stage and his spur caught the edge of that frame.
So he sneaks into the box.
He just comes into the box.
But he waited.
He waited. He knew the play. People were going to be laughing. He snuck in, one single shot Derringer in the back of Lincoln's head. And then, of course, he got into a tussle with Major Rathbone. He took out a Bowie knife and slit Major Rathbone, and then he jumped off the stage.
When he jumped down here, that's a pretty big jump.
It's a very big jump. But what's interesting about it is that when he first jumped, people thought it was part of the play. They sort of thought, what was that? That was part of the play. And it wasn't until he sort of yelled out, people were sort of like, what was that? And he went out that finally the scream came from the box. From Mrs. Lincoln, they've shot my husband, they've shot the president. And that's when sort of chaos broke out.
What happened to John Wilkes Booth?
John Wilkes Booth busts through the scenery, he busts past the actors, and he goes out the back doorway here to his waiting horse in the alleyway. Imagine 1865, there's all wooden row houses out here, knocks the young stagehand aside, jumps on the horse, and takes off.
And that's where the manhunt begins.
Manhunt begins right there.
Ford's Theater was in chaos the night Lincoln was assassinated. They tried to bring him to safety. In a horde of about 2,000 people, they were looking for somewhere to take him. They didn't want to put him into a carriage because it would be too jarring. They see a man standing on these steps with a candle. His name is Henry Safford. He is renting a room from William and Anna Peterson. This house now, where they brought him to, is one of the most famous homes in America, and we're going to go take a tour. Sylvia here works for the National Park Service. She's going to show us around. Let's go. So Sylvia, this is the exact route they brought the president here.
Yes, they did. They carried him right down this hallway to the bedroom in the back, and the staff and the friends went into these other two rooms, and that's where the visitors come, is into these two rooms first.
And also they brought Mrs. Lincoln in here, so you try to make it as real as possible when people come through.
We do, and this is Mrs. Lincoln.
How you doing, Mrs. Lincoln?
Not well. I'm here, waiting to hear of my husband.
And so they go through again as real as possible, and then you are the barber, right?
Yes, my name is William D. Fluville, and I was Lincoln barber in Springfield, Illinois. This was a boarding house, so this room was rented to a couple who lived in this, who slept in this bed. And when the Secretary of War came here, he asked them to let him use that room to do the investigation. So this was the seat of government that night while the president lay in the back room. You
said you're here because you wanted to show people that Mr. Lincoln had African Americans in his life, is that?
Yes, Mr. Lincoln had many African Americans in his life. Mrs. Lincoln had a seamstress named Keckley, and Mr. Lincoln had a barber named William D. Fulville.
Back into the hallway where he was taken, and then
right down this hallway they carried him, and they brought him into this room. This was a rental room to a soldier, and he was gone that night at a party, and so they just borrowed his empty bed, and they laid him on the bed, and they had to lay him diagonal because he's 6'4", it's a 6-foot bed. Only way he could fit was to put his feet in that corner and his head over here.
Look around this room, it's really small.
Very small room.
How many people you think were in and out
Gosh,
of here?
I don't know. They had quite a number of doctors in here, but because the room is small, there could only be so many folks in here at a time. They would take turns coming and going.
It's interesting, you think of someone who is the President of the United States, and then all of a sudden, this is where it ends.
Yes.
Yeah.